Joining us now for War Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is... What do I call you now? The comeback queen. Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Ruben. Good to be back. Good morning, Bimbai.
You're not very happy to see you.
I'm so grateful for you. And good morning, Rufai.
My dear sister.
That's me.
Oh,
Isn't
that you've gone to the sports festival?
That sports festival that just is long. That is long. Please, it's coming. It's coming.
No, British born.
No. A proud Ijebu girl. I cannot wait for Ileya this year. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. That's it. Let me tell you what's happening around the world. We'll begin in the Middle East, where 3 days after Israeli Prime Minister, 4 days even, Benjamin Netanyahu announced that he was lifting the siege of Gaza. Israel is still blocking food from reaching starving Palestinians. Now, that's according to the United Nations, who says that only 5 trucks of aid have reached Gaza by Tuesday afternoon. Despite making it into the region, aid workers had not been given permission to distribute even those small amounts of aid. Israeli authorities have approved around 100 other trucks to enter Gaza again, but they have not been allowed to cross. Now, the harsh reality is that even that shipment would do very little to reduce the widespread hunger after 11 weeks of near total siege. It is just a fifth of what reached Gaza daily before the war, when people were well fed, if you can even call it that. Now, a United Nations-backed report published earlier this month said that 1 in 5 people in Gaza are facing starvation as the territory, which is home to 2.1 million people, edges closer to man-made famine. Israel said the blockade, along with the new military campaign, is intended to pressure Hamas to release hostages held in the enclave, but many international organizations have accused Israel of using starvation as a weapon of war. Meanwhile, UK-Israeli relations have plunged to their worst state for decades. That's after the British Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, suspended negotiations over a new free trade deal. Now, speaking in the House of Commons, Lammy says that Israel's cabinet minister's calls to purify Gaza by expelling Palestinians were repellent, monstrous, and extremist. He also condemned Israel's refusal to allow thousands of aid trucks access to starving Palestinians and said that Israel's treatment of Palestinians was an affront to the values of the British people and incompatible with the principles that underpin the UK-Israeli bilateral relationship. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Conduct of the war in Gaza is damaging our relationship with your government. Despite the glimmer of hope from January's ceasefire, the suffering from this conflict has worsened. But January showed another path was possible. We urge Netanyahu's government to choose this path. The world is judging. History will judge them. Blocking aid, expanding the war, dismissing the concerns of your friends and partners, this is indefensible.
Well, very, very strong words there from the UK Foreign Secretary, who also confirmed the United Kingdom was imposing additional sanctions on illegal Israeli settler outposts in the occupied West Bank, while Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom, Zipi Hotlovile, has also been summoned to the Foreign Office. Now, at the same time, EU foreign ministers meeting in Brussels decided to review the bloc's trade agreement with Israel after a request from the Dutch Foreign Minister Casper Veldkamp. 17 of the 27 states backed the move. Now, the EU is Israel's biggest trading partner, accounting for 32% of Israel's total trade in goods in 2024. Well, I mean, we can definitely see the international community seeming to run out of patience with Israel.
But they can't do anything. That's the mass hypocrisy in the world. And when people speak out, they complain. If people in the press in the West speak out, they gaslight them, they cancel them.
See what's happening to Gary Lineker.
See what's happening to Gary Lineker, see what's happening to the likes of media and all of that.
Yeah.
See, let's go back historically. 1940, 1942, 43, 44, 45. There were Israeli revolutionary groups like Argun. Argun was led by Menachem Begin. Argun, Hanagan, revolutionary groups like that, were killing British troops. Have you ever wondered why the talk about anti-Semitism came about? Because those Israeli revolutionary groups were killing British troops after Britain had promised them of a homeland. But they felt the British were not living faster, so the British soldiers there, they were killing them. So it's not today you have had Israel not abiding by rules. This was Israel in the 1940s that a lot of people were fighting for a nation state for. The people that were fighting for them, they killed British troops. These are historical facts, they are there. Argun, Hannigan, these were groups, revolutionary groups that morphed. Bergen was a member of Argun. So when you look at the historical antecedents, Britain now telling them the same. So if in the 1940s, Israel was not ready to listen to anybody, was already their way or no way, Britain is not telling them this, nothing's going to happen. Netanyahu will continue with the blockade. Months ago, years ago, he said, he's almost done with the operation in Gaza. Today, he's gone back there again. It is obvious that like Hitler, he wants to decimate Gaza. There's no difference between what Americans did in Vietnam with Agent Orange and what Netanyahu was trying to do in Gaza. As regards trade, he's not going to stopping trade negotiations. He's not going to make any impact. Because I checked the number, it's about $5 billion worth of trade between both of them. America has over $20 billion worth of trade. So it's not going to do anything. What's going to happen is Israel is going to continue with their onslaughts. They're also going to be aided by America. And they have a free range. The only government that could have, speak true to power to them will have been a democratic government, which we saw Kamala Harris do when she was vice president leading up to this time and facing Netanyahu. But with the Trump in power, they're going to continue their onslaughts. Probably maybe down the line, they're going to look for a little ceasefire to temper things, but they're going to keep decimating Gaza. And where they are going, I suspect, is a full-on occupation.
Yes, dire escalation, especially when you look at just the humanitarian crisis and the images. I mean, they're hard to look at. And they continue to just flow in.
Absolutely.
Every moment you just see images of children and women. And I was reading a statement from the former Prime Minister of Israel, who is Ehud Olmert. Now, of course, we don't expect him to support Benjamin Netanyahu because they're using this opportunity to try and see how they can realign internal politics within Israel. So you now find that besides fighting on the international front, Benjamin Netanyahu is also becoming more and more isolated internally as they're trying to now see how they can create some sort of a coalition that can bring him out of power. So that's crisis number one. Crisis number two is that his best friends are starting to get weary. You look at how Donald Trump snubbed him. It was a snub when he did his tour of the Middle East. There was no reference. If you say, fine, he didn't need to meet with Netanyahu, but there was no reference, or there was limited reference to Gaza in all of the negotiations that took place as Donald Trump toured the various countries that have also been at the forefront of trying to negotiate a ceasefire. What does this tell you? This is your friend who you knew initially you supported him because you felt your friend had been provoked, and now you feel that your friend's response is no longer commensurate. Your friend has overreacted. Are hostages still being held? Yes. But is this response also the right thing? No. A response to a mistake can also be a mistake. And how long are civilians? So his response will always be, I saw the statements from one of his representatives saying, well, why is Hamas still hiding our people behind their women and children? So they're still very, very adamant that the issue here are the hostages and the hostages must be returned. However, we also need to be careful because the position of the EU and the statement that's been released by Keir Starmer has been received by great applause and commendation from Hamas. Hamas has released a statement saying, thank you, UK, you're doing the right thing. So this is a very sensitive topic that we're looking at.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the two subjects are related, but can we separate them? Let's start with the UN, saying that despite the promise by Prime Minister Netanyahu that the siege will be lifted and international humanitarian aid will be allowed in the Palestinian territory after an 11-week blockade.
Yes.
The same UN is now saying that 5 trucks that arrived by yesterday afternoon were not allowed to distribute. The UN is also alleging that additional trucks have not been allowed to cross. Israeli officials are saying that a total of 93 trucks were allowed to cross the border. But if they are not distributed, if they are not allowed to distribute in the critical areas, of what effect? 2, what has even been allowed in is not enough. It's a fifth of what is required per day. In other words, Israel is not showing enough commitment. Now, within Israel itself, Netanyahu faces opposition. Yair Golan, who is the leader of the Democrats, says that Israel has become a pariah nation that enjoys killing babies in the Palestinian territories. The leftists, those ones, they cannot talk. The far-right people, they are the ones saying, look, go ahead and wipe out Gaza. That's the reality. The pressure at home that Netanyahu faces is from people who are more interested in hostages, the remaining 54, being released, and they are not even interested in what is happening in Gaza. But the reality is that there is humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Over 53,000 people have been killed. 28,000 out of that 53,000 are women and children. And so the world faces this dilemma. Now, to go quickly to the reaction from Britain. Since the war started in October 2023, this has been the most aggressive, the most, eloquent response from Britain, saying that Israel is on the brink of violating international law. And it's on that basis that David Lammy in the House of Commons yesterday said, look, we're suspending trade talks with Israel because we see that what Israel is doing is monstrous, is repellent, is wholly unreasonable, is unacceptable in international law. Yeah. Now, it's not only Great Britain that is speaking in this manner. The finance minister of the EU has also said they are going to review trade deals with Israel. On Monday, Sir Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of Britain, Macron and McCartney, Prime Minister of Canada, issued a joint statement saying that Israel is beginning to violate international law. So this outrage from the international community is coming, I think, too late in the day. Where were they when South Africa went to the International Criminal Court of Justice, to say that there's genocide going on in Gaza, and other countries supported South Africa. South Africa is now in the U.S. I think Ramaphosa
we'll get into that later.
He's meeting the president
later
tomorrow.
today.
Yeah, is it today? 21st?
Later today, yes.
Today is
21st, yes.
Okay, today is 21st May. They are meeting today. I hope these issues will come up and that, the U.S., the White House, that is not happy with Israel, has been unnecessarily silent about condemning Israel in the public domain. I think the international community should speak with one voice to condemn Netanyahu and the far right. And Britain is taking the lead by saying the finance minister, the security advisor, and the defense minister of Israel will be sanctioned.
All right, team. Well,
maybe other countries will follow
suit. Well, thank you all for your admissions. Let's move on to the newspaper headlines from across the world. Let's start here in Nigeria with This Day. This Day does lead this morning with Minister of Work, Senator Dave Umahi, saying that all the 5 Southeast governors are already supporting President Bola Tinubu ahead of the 2027 elections. That's in spite of their political affiliations. Now, according to a release issued yesterday by presidential spokesperson Bayo Ononuga, Umahi made these statements in a feature interview for an upcoming State House documentary marking Tinubu's 2nd year in office. Now, his comments inadvertently look like the setting up of, certain governors, including Alex Okti of Abia State, Peter Mba of Enugu State, who belong to the Labour Party and PDP, respectively. Now, the New Telegraph, speaking of the PDP, Southeast factions within the party are splintering further, the newspaper says, as different sides harden their positions as party leadership advised the Ali Odefa-led Southeast Zonal Caucus to withdraw its threat to quit if its nominee for National Secretary, Sunday Ude Okoye, is rejected in favour of Samuel Anyamu. Now, last Wednesday's meeting of the caucus in Abuja, the NWC, presided over by the acting national chairman, Umar Damagum, made it clear that the recommendations would be considered and presented to the party's NEC, the National Executive Committee, scheduled to hold on the 27th of May this month. Now, this dispute within the PDP is also picked up by The Nation, the Leadership newspaper, and the Daily Sun, which says that three-horse battle is tearing the PDP apart as pro-Wike groups, insist on control, and Senator Bukola Saraki-led panel continues to focus on strengthening the party structure. Now, to The Guardian this morning, which does lead with some macroeconomic updates, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria has retained the monetary policy rate at 27.25%, stating that the inflation is showing significant slowdown. After a two-day monetary policy meeting, the committee further retained the CRR for deposit money banks at 50%. Now, the CRR for merchant banks is held at 16% and retained liquidity ratio of 30%. I'm sure Rotus will break this down to the layperson later on. Now, budgetary issues are on the front page of the Vanguard, but its picture headline does show an aerial image of the 753 duplex housing estate in Abuja, originally linked to former Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele and confiscated by the EFCC, that's the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Now, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development also said that the EFCC handed over the property on Tuesday back to the federal government, and this comes as stakeholders in the housing sector have called for a transparent sale of these 753 housing units, stressing that the properties should not be looted again by government officials. Now, this time to Time magazine. Now, and the richest black man in the world, which is African, Aliko Dangote, has been named among the magazine's 100 most influential for philanthropy for 2025. He's been recognized for his contributions to Africa. Time does say that Dangote Foundation, which he is endowed with 1.25 billion with a B in 2014, aims to give back to the continent that facilitated his success, spending an average of $35 million a year on programs across the continent. Now, the foundation, for example, is in the middle of a $100 million multi-year program to treat children with severe malnutrition. In terms of education, it's also a priority. Dangote himself actually recently announced a $10 million donation to Aliko Dangote University of Science and Technology in Kano State. So those are newspapers. I'm glad you actually mentioned Ramaphosa, because it's on the front cover of the Citizen newspaper, but you wouldn't know that if you looked at American media, because they're not talking about him being in the country. Ms. Levitt, the White House press secretary, also hasn't formally confirmed his arrival. So it just shows as though, we do know that he'll be meeting with Trump today, but it just seems to be an issue.
Probably there. But also you trust, the fact that Ramaphosa will be stern as much as possible. And he's going to stamp his fruit on the ground, because we cannot go back and run in circles and deceive ourselves. What happened initially was a ploy by some right-wingers and the likes of Elon Musk to be able to deceive Trump and deceive the ecosystem. And I think they should know better by now. So I know, hopefully we might see fireworks, we might not see fireworks, but I know Ramaphosa will do a good job. I also want us to look at that budget report that talked about the fact that 6.9 trillion pounds. At a time where things are very difficult, we must not have stories like that come out. The National Assembly has reacted to that. We'll like to see a very robust reaction as that goes on. But let's not also forget that budget is also complaining about fiscal responsibility, that when you look at the Fiscal Responsibility Act, the amount we earmarked for the budget, and our spending vis-a-vis our GDP, there's some aberration there. So budget is also complaining as regards, that issue there.
Okay.
Very quickly, we don't have time. Leadership newspaper, what caught my attention was that image of Paul Biya at the Cameroon Independence Day, shaking the hand of I think it was the Nigerian Chief of Defense Staff. I just can't believe how young he looks. He looks like he's somehow, but I don't know, drinking from the fountain of youth. That's what caught my attention. No time to unpack some more serious issues.
Okay, I go back quickly to this day story about Minister Dave Umahi saying that all the Southeast governors have endorsed President Tinubu. Given the calculus of Nigerian politics at this moment, do they have an option? Imo is APC. Ebonyi, I think is APC. The governor of Anambra, Abga, Professor Soludo, has already said, Anambra is supporting President Tinubu. Now, our Papa Bidi, so, the people of Anambra has already agreed. So it's just, Abia and Enugu, remaining. But everybody is going towards APC, towards Tinubu. I think it's a done deal. Maybe Dr. Ganduje is right, after all.
Thank
you
you
very much.
Well, 2 years is a long time.
It's a long time in politics.
Well, we'll see.
We'll
see.
And most importantly,
maybe more people will dissolve into the APC.
No, but most importantly, I don't like this mindset of if governors endorse you, no. It's about the people.
Yes.
So what will the people say in the
That's true.
election?
The people know the governors know what they do on election day. I think.
Can you tell us?
Who made that very clear?
Thank you so much.
I will go back.
You did. Adefemi, thank you so much.
Always.
Thank you.